In the spirit of reconciliation, the Gravel Cycling Australia podcast acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respect to their elders past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. I think people bring the best part of themselves to a gravel ride, right? Like, they leave all the crap at home, they leave their stress, they leave their
they do, which is, and you see it when you go riding with them. Like I say, we have a very eclectic mix of people who come on the short rides, different bikes, different ages, different levels of fitness, but they all leave with a smile and they all come back with a smile. Some of the hills are pretty big that we have around here. It's called the Adelaide Hills for a reason. You know, you turn left, there's a hill, you turn right, there's a hill. It doesn't matter. They come back with a smile and they come back going, that was really, really good. You know, whether it's 1 hour, 2 hours or 3, they come back saying that was really enjoyed that. And yeah, that spirit is definitely, you know, I'm sure it's the same Melbourne, Tasmania, New South Wales, Victoria, Queensland, Western Australia. I'm sure it's the same. It's the same feeling at the end of the day. It's just, yeah, a real good sense of positive well-being.
Welcome to the Gravel Cycling Australia podcast. Gravel cycling in Australia is booming. From racing to bikepacking to simply getting off the beaten track and exploring the back roads and trails of our outstanding natural landscapes. This accessible subculture is all about community, adventure, and discovering or rediscovering the joy of life on two wheels. Join us as we celebrate Australia's gravel cycling scene and discover the locations, explore the events, and meet the people at the heart of the sport. G'day everyone, welcome back. Sorry it's been a bit of a delay since our last episode. I was expecting we might be able to get a couple more episodes in before our new little baby arrived, but you know, things can change late in pregnancy, and here we are. So I'm sitting here. It's very early in the morning. Got my little bub on the lap. So if you hear some goo-goos, gagas, that's what that is. So before we get into today's episode, which is a bit of a new angle for us again, where we sort of dive a bit deeper into bikepacking and adventure gravel cycling with Andy from Graveller in Adelaide, I just thought we could do a little bit of a news roundup. So yeah, we'll jump into some of the comings and goings in the gravel world. Last episode, we spoke to Tasman Nankervis, who's doing the Lifetime Grand Prix series over in the States. So after, at the time we'd spoken to Tasman, he'd just completed the Garmin Unbound. He's gone on to some really respectable results in some of the rest of that series. He's got top 30 results in Crusher and the Tasha and Leadville 100. So yeah, really excited to continue to follow Tasman and see how he can go in the rest of the series. A little closer to home, there's been a lot of action sort of on the local gravel scene. The Northern Grodies have been continuing to grow, and at their last ride last Sunday, they reckon they had over 100 people out there at Hurstbridge to do a big gravel loop. So yeah, really exciting to see that gravel cycling and group riding in that community is continuing to grow here in Melbourne. We've also seen the Rafa Women's 100 ride last weekend out at Mount Macedon. So great to see so many ladies and women out there riding gravel and enjoying some of the great scenery out there at Macedon. So over in WA, we've got the Bike It to Balladoo event coming up this weekend. Recording this on a Friday, so it may have well been run and done by the time this episode comes out. But really excited to announce that we've got a guest reporter who's going to be on the ground bringing us some of the action from that event, talking to some of the participants, and hopefully, yeah, giving us a real sense of what that event is like. And we'll bring that to you in a future episode. A bit further afield, we have the UCI Gravel World Championships coming up on the 7th of October in Veneto in Italy. So this is the same course as they ran last year. Oz Cycling have released the Australian teams for this event, and exciting to see that Tasman has made the cut there, as well as an excellent field of men and women gravel elite cyclists who will be representing Australia, and we'll also hopefully have Cassia Boglio on the pod coming up to help give us a bit of a preview of that elite event as well. If you're keen to qualify for next year's Gravel World Championships, which will be held in Belgium, one of the UCI Gravel World Series qualifying events is on the 28th of October in Beechworth, so that's Gravelista. So you can still register for that event, get online and have a go. I'm sure the event in itself will be great, but yeah, and one of the few opportunities you'll have here in Australia to qualify for the Gravel World Series. And just finally, from a tech point of view, been some really exciting tech releases from a gravel perspective recently. We've seen a new generation of the Shimano GRX released, offering sort of a broader range of gearing setups that will help suit any sort of gravel riding. So yeah, if you're in the market for a new group set, have a look at that. I'm not going to dive too deep in the details here, but yeah, exciting to see some continued development from Shimano in the gravel space. The other tech thing that sort of caught my eye has been the release of a number of endurance road bikes. So I'm talking here about the Specialized Roubaix SL8 and the Giant Defy, which has just been released last week. And these follow hotly on the heels of the Canyon Durace, which was released a few months ago. Endurance road bikes are, I guess, traditionally been seen as bikes for riding on the road, obviously, but as gravel bikes have become more popular and more versatile, and more people are seeking out the gravel, these endurance road bikes seem to be sort of shifting a little bit into the gravel space. So we're seeing increased tyre clearances and sort of slightly more relaxed geometry to sort of accommodate the potential for gravel riding. Now, this has sort of definitely got me thinking a bit, because I've sort of, as I've mentioned in the pod recently, from my own perspective, I'm sort of mulling on the idea of sort of expanding the gravel quiver. And I live in Melbourne, it's urban, I try and seek out the gravel where I can find it. But to sort of get to the real gravel roads, I've got to travel a little bit, or at least go for a decent long ride. So I often find myself just noodling around the gravel trails around the Yarra and our sort of excellent parkland bike trail network here in Melbourne. And when I've been doing that, I've sort of been thinking that my Canyon Grail might be sort of slight overkill for that sort of gravel. So I've at times missed the fast race bike like handling of my old aluminium race bike, which I started my cycling journey on, which I've subsequently moved on to greener pastures. So yeah, I've definitely been thinking about sort of getting a second bike in that all road sort of spectrum. And I'd be interested to hear from those of you who do have one of these sort of endurance all-road bike type of bikes to see if they sort of satisfy that end of the spectrum. So yeah, I'll keep you posted as I keep thinking about that. Obviously, I've got to find some spare cash for that one, but yeah, exciting to always dream about what the next bike in the quiver might be. Just one last thing before we get into today's interview with Andy from Graveller. I had a really great message on Instagram from a listener who was keen to know if there's any inclusive gravel groups out there in Australia for LGBTQIA plus or specifically trans cyclists. So if you're aware of any of these groups that are out there, drop us a line and hopefully we can put this listener in touch. And as we've talked about a few times on this podcast, I think that the gravel space and gravel cycling is a great inclusive place for people to come and find community, and it's great that people are looking for these opportunities to find like-minded people with similar life experiences. And that's a great segue, I think, into the chat that I had with Andy. I got in touch with Andy because I was sort of keen to get a bit of a perspective on the Adelaide and the South Australian gravel scene. I've been hearing great things about the riding on the gravel around Adelaide. So Andy, who has recently set up a gravel and adventure bikepacking shop in Adelaide, seemed like a great fit to go to. And whilst we did have a good chat about that, it sort of, these conversations often go down some rabbit holes, and this is a great example. And eventually we just had an opportunity to sort of wax lyrical and share our love for gravel cycling. So as you'll hear, Andy has a really interesting life background and has sort of come to the cycling industry only recently, but I think it's a great example of someone who's taken a chance and put themselves out there, and I think he's really bringing a lot to the table and at very least providing a great space for the gravel community in the Adelaide Hills to come together and ride. So yeah, I'll bring you that chat with Andy now. Andy, thanks for coming on.
Hey, great to be here. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
So I usually start these podcasts by asking people about their background in cycling and how they got into gravel, but sort of based on the discussions we were having a bit earlier, I think we might need to go a bit deeper with your background, because I think other than the cycling, it sounds definitely very deep and interesting and very varied. So can you give us a consolidated life history if you have to?
Consolidated, that would be hard, because I can talk. I'm certainly not a cyclist in the traditional sense of the meaning. My background is I started off as a soldier, a paratrooper in England. Left that out a couple of years. I joined that when I was 16, so I was pretty young, and basically did that because my ultimate profession was to be a policeman. And I knew that I couldn't be a policeman at 16. I had to be at least 18. So I thought I'd kill 2 years and get fit and try and toughen up a little bit. I ended up being a copper in London in the Met Police for nearly 6 years. I worked on a serial offenders squad there, interviewing different kind of offenders, basically anybody who'd done the same offence 3 or 4 times. So everything from your bog standard bike robber to your more serious kind of serial killers and serial offenders. Worked undercover there, but I'm a very what's the word? Not flighty, but I'm always looking for a bit of a different horizon, I guess. And I ended up leaving the police. I just felt like doing something different, and ended up being a journalist. I was a journalist for a long while with the BBC, with Reuters. I was in Bosnia for a couple of years. I ended up then going into writing books, written a few books, mainly on psychopaths, which is a bit of a strange path to go down, I guess, in some respects, but it was something I knew about. Wrote a couple of fiction books, and to cut a long story short, came to Australia, set up a business here doing writing and insight and analysis for different organisations here. And then in September of last year, on a whim, decided that I'd set up a gravel bike and bikepacking shop. And I don't really know where that came from in some respects, but I'm quite happy I did.
Yeah, I mean, being a police officer in London doing undercover work, you would have seen some things that most people
quite a few.
Yeah,
some I probably can't say on this podcast, but yeah, we had no, that was good. It was obviously I was in the East End of London, so Bethnal Green, and then I was on the TSG, the riot police, for a few years there as a riot copper. And when you're in the riot police, you get an opportunity to not only go and look after police, public disorder and what have you, but you get to work on a bit of different squads, different undercover squads and what have you. So I worked a little bit on the football hooligan squad. So I was a pretend football hooligan for Arsenal, for the Gooners, for a few months. So I infiltrated them. Journalism was a pretty easy step. I knew I couldn't go much further than I wanted to in the police, and I could see the pathway of my life that was going in the police. And I just thought there's got to be somewhere, other than the East End of London, getting, dealing with this. And journalism was it was the next. It was the kind of job that suited the police skills in terms of being nosy, in terms of being inquisitive, and just putting things together, and that was a natural step.
And you've written some novels as well, you're telling me?
Yeah, so I've written 5 novels and 5 non-fiction books. So crime thrillers. Thrillers about serial killers, so there's one called The Disciples, one called The Chance, one called Skylark, one called Monkey Business, a couple of more comedy books, and then I've written the biography of an Olympic swimmer here, Australian swimmer called Patria Thomas. That was called Swimming Against the Tide, and then written a couple of books about the deceptive behaviour of psychopaths. I've got a book out there somewhere. If you Google Andy Shea, you'll get the word psychopath after it, because that's one of the books, which wasn't very good when you're single. Let me tell you.
So what brought you to Australia?
I came here, I was working as a journalist in the Middle East, and then I went from the Middle East. I basically got a book deal when I was in the Middle East. I'd written a couple of books there. I got a book deal in England, and I thought to myself, if I can get a book deal there, I can get one in Australia. And I'd already been to Australia in 96, I think it was. I'd worked here for the Australian newspaper. And I thought, I loved it there. I'd like to go back, and I wasn't ready to go back to England. And I also knew that if I got a book deal in England, I'd have to be there for 3, 4, 5, 6 years to kind of do sequels to them. And that was, like, to me at that time, was like a prison sentence. I didn't want to do it. So I just got on the plane, came over to Australia, landed in Sydney, with like one little bag and not much money and two manuscripts, and thought, I'm going to get a book deal. And I ended up getting a book deal. It was for a lot less money than I got offered in England, but it kind of set me up here. And I then from that I got a job working for a big corporate here, doing writing for them, and then from that, I set up my own businesses.
Given this is a cycling podcast, we should probably move on to that. But I reckon we could
back to the bikes.
We could probably talk about your other background for hours.
All good.
So where did the bike come into your life?
Look, I've ridden bikes as a kid, ridden them all my life. I think my first bike was a rally grifter back in England, on a council estate in England, with a little twist shift gear. But coming over here, I've always been very outdoorsy, always been very into camping, always been into hiking and running as well. And when I was living in Sydney, I was into mountain bike. I got really into mountain biking. So I used to live in Cronulla, used to do a lot of mountain biking through the Royal National Park through there, just single trails, just whipping through there every Sunday and Saturday and Sunday, and going surfing in the afternoon. Idyllic life. So I've always loved being on the bike. And when I eventually moved to Adelaide, it was done a lot of running. I'd bust my knee. I couldn't run, and I got on a bike, and I've never turned back. And it started off again, going back to the mountain biking. Did a little bit of road biking, but I really don't have the body for Lycra. So I just thought I've got a good face for radio and a good body for gravel. So my mountain biking, I can't really keep up with the young ones anymore. Being a father, I've got a 12-year-old who's a gun on a mountain bike, and there's no way I can follow him down some of the hills. If I do, he just laughs at me, and if I do, I'm going to end up in a wheelchair. So it was, to me, gravel was just, it was like the next big thing. It was like the next easiest thing to do and most logical thing to do that fit in with my body shape and my sense of style. I've been riding a gravel bike, I guess, for now 6-7 years. In terms of bikepacking, probably been 2 or 3 years. Really, I'm relatively new to that, but the gravel biking, I just love it. And where I live, I'm in the Adelaide Hills. It's just a mecca. There's just so much to go and so much to see. We're blessed, we're so lucky. I mean, all of Australia is really, but obviously, I'm here. My little pocket here is absolute heaven, and it was, I just love it. It gives you that, my other work is very deadline driven. I have clients that are, relatively screaming down my head every other day. There's all that pressure on you, obviously being a pressure of it, that being a husband, being a father as well. There's that pressure as well. And my bike just, it just gives me that ability to just get out there and just be free, and there's no cars. That's the beauty of it. The only thing I don't like is September, when the magpies swoop, and everybody who knows me in my shop will know that I'm not very particular on going out in September, but it's
cyclists all
everybody
over the
is.
country
Absolutely. But I just love it. I just love my bike, and I just love it. I love getting out. I love the sense of just well-being it gives you, just that sense of freedom and that clarity. For me, I write books at the same time as I'm doing all this stuff. So it's the only time I can think clearly about plots, subplots, characters. I can voice them in my head without anybody else voicing them, interrupting me. I just love it. I love my bike.
There's something so special about it, isn't there? Just when you're out there.
And everybody has it. It's like I think that's the beauty of having the shop, where there's this common denominator, is this clarity and this sense of just goodness, not even well-being, just this sense of positivity and goodness about being out there and being amazed at, I think, what your body can do. I'm 53 now. If I look back 10, 15 years ago, if somebody said, you could ride 105 kilometers on Sunday, I'd have laughed at them. But now I can. Because I just do it. You don't even think about it. You just go, it's 10K, 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 20K, 20. You just do it. It's just that ability, that kind of almost wisdom it gives you of your body, your physiology to go and do it, I think is just wonderful. I think it's brilliant.
So 6-7 years, you said you've been doing the gravel there in Adelaide. We're sort of talking early days of gravel culture in Australia back then. Was there a lot of people riding gravel already, or were you? How did you come to it?
It was number one, getting off a road. I had a road bike, and where I was riding at the time was kind of inner city, just dangerous, and just there was not many bike lanes. It just didn't. it just didn't suit well with me. And because I'd had a pretty idyllic kind of life in Sydney where I was living. I was living on a beach, not far from this amazing national park, and it was pretty easy to get to, and it was all off road. So there was no asphalt to go, tarmac asphalt to go through. And riding the road bikes here was a bit more combative. It was like, you're beating traffic, and while there wasn't a lot, it's not a Melbourne or Sydney, it's not crazy here. There was enough to kind of put you off going back on the roads, and I don't think even back then that while the Tour Down Under was big, it was gone and forgotten, pretty quick. There was a load of cyclists in January, then all gone, and January was lovely because there was millions of you, thousands of you riding around, and it was, the streets were yours. You own the streets, you own them day and night. The rest of the time, it was a bit of a fight, bit of a battle. And I just thought, I really like going out mountain biking, and I'd actually gone off when we'd moved up this end of the city. I'd gone off road a few times on my road bike and just gone, this bike's not capable of doing this, and the hills are too big for my mountain bike. I need something different. And then I found a bomb track, and that was the end of it. I was off and running. It was low gear ratios. It was bomb proof. There's carbon fiber, and it shot up the hills, and it bounced over everything that came in its way. And I was like, oh, this is it. So that was it. So everywhere I went, it was quite funny because I get asked, what's that bike? Where do you get it from? What is it? I've never seen one. It looks like a mountain bike, but it's not, because it's got, it's a hook. It's got fairly big tires on it. And at the time it was, there wasn't many of them. And then, fast forward, 5, 6, 7 years later, it's kind of morphed into a shop.
You're talking about obviously the origins of the Graveller shop there. So so people were coming to you. They sort of saw you as a bit of a gravel expert in this field. Or?
So I don't consider myself anything like that at all. I think people were just curious to the bike. Number one, when they first saw the bike, they were like, "What is that?" There are certain places where you can ride around here, and if people are in the Adelaide Hills, you Radler pub is one. You stop there, you Radler bakery, you have a coffee. There's loads of roadies there. They're all in there. They're all clipping around. They're all in their, lycras. And you'd walk in, you'd put your bike next to their bikes, and your tyres were twice as thick. Your handlebars were 3 times as wide. And you'd get off, and you weren't clip-clopping, into the bakery. And you looked pretty relaxed. You had a T-shirt and a pair of shorts on, and you look like you've just been out for a walk with your dog. So you get some of those guys say, "What is that bike?" And it's a natural curiosity. I think that's the thing with bikes, like bike porn, isn't it? Everybody looks at the people's bikes and goes, "Wow, that's a nice bike. What's that from?" And I think their curiosity was like, "What is that bike? It's weird." And I thought, "It's a gravel bike." And they go, "Well, what is it?" I said, "It's a bike that goes on gravel." Well, why has it got those handlebars? I said, "I don't know." Well, it's bloody good. So they go, "That's pretty cool." And then, that would happen, on a regular basis, until suddenly there was a bike shop here, and it's still here, Treadley's, a fantastic bike shop where I got mine from. And obviously, more people bought them, and then more people brought them up into the hills, and more people saw them. And it just kind of, it's obviously just, it just kind of went, but I'm in no way, shape or form am I an expert. It's just been, people just asked, "Where's that bike come from?" And I've just gone, "Well, it's a gravel bike." And then as it's morphed into, stepping forward, I've got bags on the bike that I've bought from overseas that you can't get here. And people go, "Where do you get those bags from?" I go, "No, I got them from overseas." "But you can't get them here." "Oh, that's interesting." And if you do get them, you have to buy them online. They don't fit your bike. And I just thought, well, hang on, there's something missing here. There's just something that maybe, there's a bit of an opportunity. And I'm a bit bored of my other businesses, so let's give it a go and see what happens.
So what was that process like? Just one day you thought, let's do it?
I think it was a Tuesday morning. I'm riding my bike. I got to the Radler bakery. I think I was having a flat white and a Danish, which is usual par for the course. And just 2 guys who've got gravel bikes. I think one had a Norco, and the other guy had a Genesis, which is pretty good, pretty rare to see here at that time. And he said, "Wait, I had some Apidura bags on it that were pretty old. I'd got them from England a few years before." And they said, "Where do you get those bags from?" And I said, I bought them from England." They said, "Yeah, we had this chat about buying bags online, and they never fit your bike, and you have to send them back. It's a real pain." And And I said, yeah, that's true. I said, they have all these bags you can put on the handlebars. They've got seat bags. I said, you can't get any of them here. And at the time, you couldn't get them in Adelaide. That was the thing. And I kind of got on my bike and I was riding along, and that clarity of mind that you get, and I'm just kind of thinking, maybe there's a bit of a chance here. Maybe there's something missing. So I went, I came home and I thought, I typed into Google, how do you set up a bike shop? And there's loads of little things, right? There's loads of YouTube clips and all this thing. I thought, right, okay, that sounds pretty easy. And I thought, well, how do you get the gear? So then I Googled, distributors for all the gear that I wanted to buy myself, thinking, well, I'm going to go for all these top brands. And lo and behold, it was quite easy to actually get the gear as long as you paid the money for it. And then before I knew it, I'd got all these accounts up. I emailed all these distributors and said, I'm setting up a shop. I really didn't, being very honest, didn't really know whether I was going to set up a shop, but Googled them, got all their information, managed to get some gear off them. 4 or 5 days later, I've got $20,000 worth of gear in my study. And I thought, bugger me, I better buy a shop. I better get a shop sorted. So, and I always wanted to get a shop. I didn't want to do anything online because I thought the whole point of the shop was I want people to come and try the stuff. Yeah, and it's just more from there. And then, yeah, like I said, like last September, I managed to find a shop. Yeah, well, here we are. I'm on a podcast.
Did you have sort of a broader vision of really what you wanted to achieve, or was it sort of just giving people that outlet that this was the place that they could
I think first off was give them a place to come and see the gear. That was number one. Give them where they can touch and feel stuff. They can try it, they can look at it, they can see the colours, see the materials. Give them that. I think what it's morphed into more is been almost like it's become a fulcrum for the community. And I was very, very nervous when I first opened. I was very scared in a way. I don't get frightened that often, but I was a bit scared of, it's not like if they build it, they will come. It was like, well, what happens if they don't? It's not like the Field of Dreams, like Kevin Costner walking through, a field of corn. It's like, well, I'm walking through the field of corn, but what happens if there's like a brick wall there and there's nobody here? So I was a bit wary of that, and I didn't really understand. I knew nothing of the gravel scene here. I didn't know how big it was. I didn't know how many people that were interested in it. Certainly bikepacking, which is very, very niche, I guess. I didn't have a clue on. And I just thought, well, at the very least, it's going to be a place that people can just come and just talk. And I'm very good at talking to people. I'm very good at making them feel comfortable, I guess, and just, not so much getting information out from them, but just making them talk. So I thought, at least I can do that.
Yeah.
And if I can do that, then hopefully somebody will buy something. Even if it's just a Cliff Bar, they'll buy something. Over the past 3 or 4 months, it's kind of become a place where people come and talk and sit, I've probably all get the Adelaide Ale's worst coffee that I make, but the coffee can only get better. It's become a place where people can come and talk and just share. You'll get people who've never met anybody, never met themselves, never met each other before, and they'll just come in and talk, and they'll just start talking about the trips they've done, the Mawson they've done, the stuff they carried, their chain set they worked on, the tyres. And you just kind of sit back and go, this is quite nice. They're coming together, and so that's been a really like a quietly proud thing.
I wonder if there's something in that, like with gravel specifically. I think a lot of people find it as sort of adults, and they probably find it independently of their main social group that they're used to hanging out with, and probably a lot of people start doing it by themselves, and then finding that community is potentially hard. Whereas I think maybe with other forms of cycling, road, and even mountain bike, you probably get taken along to a group as your first experience. So yeah, I wonder if there's definitely something in there.
I've never ridden with anybody before I had the shop, and I've always been, somewhat of a lone wolf. I like riding. I like my own company. I like being on my own. Even my family will say that. And that was one of the biggest personal growth things of the shop. It was like, all these bike shops I'm looking at, they do shop rides. I'm going to have to do them. And I'm thinking, well, that means I'm going to have to ride with people. I'm going to have to get over that for a start. So people who come for the short rides, they come on their own. They're not coming on groups of 2, 3s and 4s. They're coming on their own. These are individuals that are coming. And I think that's really brave. The shared purpose, the shared interest that they have, there's just no judgment. I think that has been a real eye opener as well. I think as humans, we judge people, and I think cycling has a tendency to judge people. You know, if you haven't got the right gear, if you haven't got this, you haven't got that, you are kind of frowned on. Whereas if you've got, if you've got the latest and greatest, it's like, we're looking all right. You were accepted. I think gravel's it's ubiquitous. Anybody can come in, just do it, and that's been really quite eye opening. And it's been a really positive thing.
That's really interesting that that you haven't had to make that point to people. It's almost like people know that.
Yeah, they just come. They just come.
Space, and they'll come.
And it's the same thing we do. I've run these community nights at the shop, and again, just thought nobody's going to turn up to these. I've put things up and thought, I've got some speakers in. Will anybody turn up? And I've got a very tiny shop. It's not a massive shop. It can probably, at best, comfortably fit 30 people in it. So I've limited these community nights to 30, 35 people. I find it very hard to say no. So I've had, maybe 45 people in there, and it's been like a sweatshop in Vietnam. So it's not been very good. But I've had in the back of that, I've had maybe 150, 150 people want to come to these events. So it's been like, wow, there's a huge community out there of people who want to come here and be part of this. And it's been, but again, they're coming as individuals. They're not coming in groups. They're not coming in groups of 3s, 4s, and 5s. They're coming on their own. And they're coming there. And once they're in there, they're just chatting because they're suddenly in this forum where everybody's the same and everybody wants the same thing. And when you say, what do you love about your bike? It's always common. It's always what I've been saying to you. It's that clarity, that sense of freedom, that sense of just, God, I can go wherever I want. It's me. Off I go. And yes, you might have 10 or 15 people around you, but you're all thinking the same thing. I think it's beautiful. It's lovely to see. And it's been, for me, that's been a real quietly proud thing that I've done. Like, I'm not a showboater, and I'm certainly not like, going, oh, look at this, it's amazing. But inside, I'm going, you've done all right here. You're bringing these people together, and that's a really good thing because they need it. After COVID, they need it. Yeah, the demographic, I think, as well, the mature demographic, it needs it as well to get together and do this stuff. And yeah, that's been really, really positive. It's been really good.
I think it's great what little shops like yours are doing for the gravel community. Obviously, your shop is a bit different to your sort of average bike shop that people might be aware of. It's got more of this bikepacking adventure focus. Just going into that a bit deeper, what sort of bikepacking trips have you been on? Have you got some good stories to tell from those?
Yeah, I've done a little bit of the Mawson and a little bit of the Lavender Trail. And then other things has just been on my own, just pottering around the Adelaide Hills here. But yeah, I mean, for me, it's been trying to get out and not so much test myself, but yeah, just see if I can do the distances sometimes and just experience the elements in a different way. Like I said before earlier on, used to do a lot of hiking, camping, walking and camping. Until I got on the bike, it was like, wow, I can go really quite far here, and I can actually quite extend my horizons a bit. And yeah, again, where I live here and where the shop is, we're just blessed. There's just so much. It's just, I can, in a past life when I was a journalist, I'd write for fairly big magazines, big travel magazines that would send me off and away everywhere. And, you go to places like, you go to Europe and go, wow, look at this. This is like Tuscany. Look at this. It's amazing. And I can have Tuscany, the Côte d'Azur and the Canadian pine forest in a day here. I can ride for 5 hours and do that here and experience that and just go, there's nobody here. This is amazing. Bikepacking, sometimes it's been treacherous, mainly, again, magpies. I've got a pathological hatred of them, must be said. After last year, I did the Lavender Trail last year, and it was like being in Top Gun Maverick. These things were killers. They were awful. In my previous careers, I've been shot at, stabbed, spat at, punched, but I've never been more scared than anything than a magpie. And at one point, I had like 6 or 7 of them. One of them actually took the magnetic light off the back of my helmet and flew in front of me and threw it in my face repeatedly. And it was just so I kind of said, that's it. But and I've took a few people. We've had a few. But like bikepacking overnighters with the shop, which has been fantastic. Unfortunately, they've been in the worst weather possible. It seems like every time I plan them, it just buckets it down, and it goes from being, a balmy 22 to -3, and
Yeah, you
with
can't
wind
control
and
those
hail,
things,
and
can you?
yeah, and and you've packed as a bivvy, and it's kind of why? But but I just love it. I love the fact that you can test yourself, and you can take as much or as little as you want, and still be the same as everybody else. You're still embracing the elements and still out there with them. I love it, absolutely love it.
So you sort of touched on the gear a bit then. I'm sure people come in the shop and ask you, like, what do I need to go bike packing? What's sort of your general approach to that question?
First off is like, where are you going? How far are you going? How long are you going for? I've had people turn up at the shop and they're coming in for an overnighter, and it looks like they're about to conquer Alaska. And you just think, like, you don't really need all that gear, really. Detrimental to my shop because I'll sell it to you if you want, but really you don't really need it. But mainly it's been an interesting. Like I say, I don't consider myself an expert at all, but people, I think they expect you to be. Well, you know what you're on about, so you become quite good at talking it. Mostly it's about, what can I carry, what can I get on my bike, how much should I take, do I really need this? I had a lady come in the other day, and she was determined to carry 2 sleeping bags, and it's like, well, you don't really need 2 sleeping bags, but I'm a cold sleeper. I said, well, you can't possibly carry 2 sleeping bags on this bike because you're going to need a 40-litre dry bag to put them in, and no bike can carry that, literally. So it's just kind of educating people, I guess, on what they really need and what they can live without, and also what they can physically carry. A lot of people, they see, bikepacking.com is a fantastic website to look at and see what's on. There's a lot of guys on Instagram that are there, and you can see some of what they carry. You think, right, I'm going to carry all of that gear. But the more that you put on your bike, the more you're going to load it up, the heavier it's going to be. And half of that stuff you're not going to need. And I know that from myself. I've got a 20-litre saddlebag, that miscrate saddlebag that is huge, and you have the urge to fill it because it's there. It's like Everest, why? Because it's there. So you kind of go, well, I'll fill it up. I've got 4 t-shirts in there, 2 pairs of pants, 5 pairs of underpants. I'm only going out for a night. I don't know what I'm thinking, and I've got my jet ball stove in there as well. What is going on? I'm going to be eating at a pub.
It's a bit of a paradox, isn't it? Like, people always want, I want the lightest bike. I've got to, like, shave every gram. And then when it comes to bike packing, I want to take my whole house.
Yeah, like I said, with me, like I've got this 20-litre behemoth on the back of my saddle, and I'm not the tallest of guys, and I can't get my leg over it. So it's like it's quite hard, It's like this is ridiculous. So I tend to tell people, just bring your bike in. Let's just see what you need. Let's just see what you really need, how far you're going, and and what is it that you're intending to do. Like most people, I think, certainly from the experience of the shop, a lot of people come in and go, I want to go bikepacking, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do the Mawson Trail, and then there's a but in it. So, but I'm going to stop at pubs along the way. So well, you don't need a tent, you don't need a sleeping bag, you don't need this, you don't need that, because you're going to sustain yourself every 50, 60k that you do. All you need to do is have enough water to get you there, and then you can start whittling the equipment that they need. But there's a tendency to have not so much the latest and greatest, but have everything. Do you want to throw your kitchen sink in as well? Because that's what you're going to be carrying. I'm a terrible salesman at stopping them. I should really be saying, no, please. No, but my ethics are, no, I shouldn't. I can't tell you that.
Right? Like, they can tell if they're getting sold or if.
Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, I let people try equipment on. I let them take it out. I let them fill it up. I've got a bag of old t-shirts in the back of the shop. I fill stuff and say, right, just put it on your bike, go and take it out, see how it feels, see what the balance is like, see how it feels with the wind on it. They go, I want a full frame bag, and you go, well, full frame bags are great until you get a crosswind, because if you're not heavy enough, it's going to blow you off like a sail. And they go, oh, I never thought of that. I said, well, go and have a try. And they go, oh, yes, it did. I said, no, it's the same with, I saw this guy, he had all these things on his forks, these fork bikes. And I said, well, they're very, very good, but there's a lot of wind resistance off them. There's a bit of steering issues with them. Just be careful what you put in them, And so it's just wising people up, I guess, in a way like that. Because I think they do. I think a lot of people come in with a very romantic ideal of like, oh, I want all this gear and everything will work if I get all this gear, but it's not necessarily the case. It's like just get what you're comfortable with and take what you need. It's a pretty simple human thing. And if you're flash camping it, which a lot of people are, then you don't need a tent, you don't need a sleeping bag, you don't need an inflatable pillow, you don't need blah 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 blah. You don't need a jet boiler stove, you don't need a gas canister to go with it, you don't need a crank tank. All you need is this, and that will get you there. And we're all guilty of it. I've been guilty of it, like I say. So, you live and learn.
So, what's the gravel scene like there now? I keep hearing all these great things about the gravel around Adelaide. Mm-hmm. You sort of said yourself it's been growing. Is it sort of reached a critical mass now? Is there a real subculture brewing there?
I think it's definitely growing. There is like I said, one of my fears for the shop was there's nobody here to do this stuff. There's nobody here to come. And then you look on Facebook and there's a gravel riding club that's got 2,500, 3,000 members on it. There's the Chonkla Cross, the cycling clubs that are getting more into the gravel racing. That's pushing the gravel thing up. You've got a couple of the big name riders here that are getting into gravel and are pushing that as well. So that they're riding overseas and pushing it. Yet they're local riders. You've got your ultra bikepackers like the Jimmy Ashbys of the world. The magical White Rhino himself, he's just finished the race to the Rock and finished first. A local chap. They're all pushing it here, so it's growing really, really good. I think what I've found with the shop is that there's a real enthusiasm for cyclocross, for CX racing, so gravel, racing type of thing, and I think that is not being rude to them, but it's probably they're just coming off the cusp of being competitive racers in Lycra, when I say road, and they're going, you know what, this is the next best thing. So and they've still, we have riders that come on short rides with us, and I call them the Kelpies because they go, thump, 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 thump. They go up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. And I say, why are you doing that? Isn't the whole point of gravel that, look at that koala, look at that kangaroo. They go, thump, thump, I can't help it, I'm a racer, thump, thump, thump. And they go. And they say, you should get some cyclocross bikes in. And I'm going, yep, I will do, eventually when I can afford some. But so that's coming up. And like I said, there's the Chonkla Cross I just finished, which is really popular, proving really popular here and growing. Obviously, you got the trails, you got the Morse, and you got the Lavender. The other week I did the Rockley 105, which is in its 10th year now here. So that's been going on for 10 years, and it's getting bigger and bigger. And that's an absolutely incredible event. Like, it's a brilliantly organised, phenomenal route. It's just brilliant. And that was, I think they had the most attendees there this year of that. I think 300 and odd, and that's really supported by a lot of different other shops around, a lot of the retailers around here. And obviously, the cycle clubs as well. So it's really growing. It's a really positive thing. And like I said very early on, we're blessed here because you only have to get in a plane and fly from here to Melbourne and just look down. It's a kaleidoscope of gravel. I flew a few weeks ago. Flew back from Melbourne on one of the midday flights with Qantas on a propeller plane, and was taking some pictures out of the window, and I put them on Instagram, and I got a message from this guy saying, "Oh, were you in this seat on this plane?" I said, "Yeah." Well, he was the pilot, and he's a gravel bike guy, and he'd been into the shop, didn't know him, and I said, "Hey, he said, "I've got all them geolocated," and it's just like, you look at it and go, this is just, you could spend months there and never see the same trail. So we're very, very lucky. And I think that it can only grow. I think I'm at, in terms of bike packing, I think that's got, it's got serious, you look at how it's gone in Europe, it's increased 500-600% in the past 2 years. So I think here, it'll grow. And I think, I think we're in a good place, and people are getting older, people can't keep riding on their road bikes all the time. So it's that demographic, that natural progression that aging will hopefully push people into it as well. But I think it's a lovely, honestly, it's been a real, for me, the shop's been a real eye-opener. It's been a lovely seeing a community, seeing how many people have really, really passionate about it, and just enjoy it. Just enjoy it, not for how good they look or what they're riding or what gear they've got, but for actually what they're doing. And I think I think that for me is like that's how it should be. I don't think it should be what you've got, how much money you've got, how much you spent on that. I think it just be how much you enjoy it, how much of yourself you put into it, and what you get back from that. I think that's how it should be.
I think people bring the best part of themselves to a gravel ride, right? Like they leave all the crap at home, they leave their stress, they leave.
They do, which is and you see it. You see it when you go riding with them. Like I say, we have a very eclectic mix of people who come on the short rides, different bikes, different ages, different levels of fitness, but they all leave with a smile. They all come back with a smile. Some of the hills are pretty big that we have around here. It's called the Adelaide Hills for a reason. You turn left, there's a hill. You turn right, there's a hill. It doesn't matter. They come back with a smile, and they come back going, "That was really, really good." Whether it's 1 hour, 2 hours, or 3, they come back saying, "That was really, really, really enjoyed that." And yeah, that spirit is definitely. I'm sure it's the same. Melbourne, Tasmania, New South Wales, Victoria, Queensland, Western Australia. I'm sure it's the same. It's the same feeling at the end of the day. It's just, a real good sense of positive well-being.
Just before we finish up, Andy, love chatting with you tonight. Just before we finish up, have you got any advice for yourself if you were to do this again?
I honestly don't know what I'd tell myself. I've enjoyed it. It's been I'm not one to shy away from a challenge, and I'm not one to. I don't really fear failure, and that's not an egotistical or narcissistic thing at all. It's just like, I just think, if you fail, you fail. Just pick yourself up and crack on. I want it to succeed and want it to keep going. And the success for me isn't the financial side of it. It's more just keep building that awareness and keep driving people to it. Just keep pulling people into it and exploring places. Trying to expand the horizons of where we are, I guess, in some respects as well. Take them to new places and do it together. I think that's been a big thing for me. I think one of the things I would say is that it's not, for me, it's not going to be that hard to ride with somebody. It's actually going to be quite enjoyable. You don't have to always be Han Solo.
Well, Andy, thanks very much. If people are in Adelaide or visiting, how can they find the shop? Whereabouts are you?
We're in Aldgate, which is up in the Adelaide Hills, just past Stirling, Mount Barker Road. It's absolutely beautiful little spot. Great cafes, great wineries, great breweries, great gin factories. It's not very good if you don't like alcohol, but it's a wonderful, wonderful place. It's beautiful. Right in the heart of the Adelaide Hills, and there's nowhere finer. And the tour down under goes straight across straight past the shop. So you can't miss us.
What a story. What a guy. What a background, and really exciting to see that there's people willing to put themselves out there to provide a space for the gravel community. I think Andy's doing a great job for the people there in the Adelaide Hills. So chapeau. So as I said a bit earlier, next up we'll be getting all the action from the Bike at Balladoo event over in WA, and also hoping to look forward to the UCI Gravel World Championships, so stepping a bit back into the gravel racing scene, and really looking forward to a big summer of gravel riding all across the country. As always, if you want to get in touch, please email us at thegravelcyclingpodcast@gmail.com, and as always, you can also get in contact with us on Instagram. If you'd like to support the show, there's also a link there in the show notes, and I'll put some details about some of those events that Andy mentioned today. And if you've got any thoughts about that all-road bike decision I've got ahead of me, then please let me know. My name's Tristan. This has been the Gravel Cycling Australia podcast. Thanks for tuning in.